Okay, folks, welcome to the next City Council agenda. This is just after 4 on Tuesday, March the 1st, and we're looking for a motion to go in camera downstairs in Committee Room 2. Motion by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Dabrowski. All those in favor? Okay, and that is unanimous. Thank you for that. So we will reconvene, folks, after our in-camera session back up here in Council chambers when we're done. Okay, folks, welcome to the regular part of tonight's City Council agenda, Tuesday, March the 1st. We just finished in camera downstairs. We're now in the regular part of the meeting. So first part of the meeting, we traditionally like to sing O Canada in our council meetings. So I'd like to give a little intro to the person who's going to be singing O Canada. It's Isabella Milano. Isabella is a grade 12 student at Ann Meyer. She is organizing a concert which will take place Friday, April the 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Niagara Falls Convention Center. She wanted to showcase young musicians, and this will be the first time a local high school student will perform in a formal setting in more than 2 years. The concert, titled Up in the Air, is to be a reflection of the way graduating students have felt about their futures during pandemic times. Up in the Air. Donations of non-perishable food items will be accepted at the event. Tickets are on sale at the Convention Center box office. We'd like to welcome Isabella singing O Canada, and we ask everyone to please stand for the singing. Great job, Isabella. Thank you very much. And just a reminder, the concert she is going to be having will take place Friday, April the 22nd, 7 p.m. at the Niagara Falls Convention Center. Tickets are available at the Convention Center box office. Thank you very much, Isabella. Next up on the agenda is the Land Acknowledgement and Traditional Indigenous Meeting opening. With the aim of educating our community, I'd like to invite Chief Stacy Laforme, Chief of the Mississaugas of the Credit, to share his testimony as we acknowledge and thank the Indigenous peoples.
Chief R. Stacy Laforme, Mississaugas of the Credit. I'd like to acknowledge the Creator, the world around us, and our place within it. I acknowledge the many nations that walked this land in the past, the many nations that walk it today, and welcome you to the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe. The treaties with the Mississaugas are the Niagara Treaty of 1781 and the Between the Lakes Treaty of 1792. I would also like to acknowledge the Treaty of 1764 that recognized the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which set a new relationship between the Indigenous people and the Crown. Chimagwich Wampi.
Thank you very much, Chief Laforme. Next up, we're looking for an adoption of the minutes from our February 8th council meeting. Motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you. Next up, disclosures of a pecuniary interest. Do you have any disclosures? Yes, Councillor Lococo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a conflict on 7.3 RNC 2022-03, the Canada Day fee for service. It was my spouse's former employer.
Okay, we've got that. The clerk's noted that. Any other, yes, Councillor Pietrangelo.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. 7.3, it's report L 2022-02. My family owns land, not part of this report, but part of the overall road widening project, which will be affected.
Okay, thank you for that. The clerk has made note of that as well. Councillor Dabrowski.
Under communications 9.2.
Microphone.
There's under communications 9.2, there's a flag raising request for Poland's Constitution Day. The request is made by my father, so I'll declare a conflict on it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Strange, did you have one? No? Okay. Any other disclosures? Okay, seeing none, thank you for everyone's disclosures. We'll move right into the mayor's reports and announcements. Under obituaries, Giuseppe Pino Firenze, father of Rosanna Firenze, former employee in legal and clerk's department, passed away. We offer our condolences. You'll notice on the screen photos from regarding Ukraine. We're going to have them up on the screen. Here you can see we lit the falls in the Ukrainian colors of blue and yellow. And you'll also notice the Ukrainian flag behind me here in council chambers to show our support and solidarity. We are also flying the Ukrainian flag at City Hall out front. I know I've received a lot of calls and emails from many residents and constituents and councillors asking what we're doing. We've illuminated the falls blue and yellow 1 hour each evening, Friday the 25th, Saturday the 26th, Sunday the 27th of February. So we've done the falls several times. And as well, I'd like to point out that we did have a visit 2.5 years ago from President Zelensky and his wife, Olena. They visited Niagara Falls in the summer of 2019. And I think we've got some pictures of that as well, I believe. Not sure. We're scrolling through the pictures. Do we have those pictures? Do we know? We don't know. It seems like we're going back to the same pictures. Not sure how we communicate with our people with the pictures. Okay, well, I'm not really sure where those pictures are. No, no pictures. Okay, so you'll see it on social media that President Zelensky was here with his wife. Really, really wonderful person. You know, for anybody that has a chance, you see him in action right now in a leadership role in a very, very difficult situation, and pretty incredible person and leader. So he was here, loved Niagara Falls, loved Canada, had nothing but great things to say. They were so excited to be here, all of his family. And I shared with him the big connection, the Ukrainian connection, that, of course, 1.4 million Ukrainians live in Canada. And my mother's mother came from Ukraine as well. So it was a nice way to welcome him to Niagara Falls. And as we say, you know, one of the most famous natural wonders on the planet. And they were very excited to be here. And the photos, you got to check them out. And it's too bad we don't have them here right now, but they're available all over social media. And it's so neat to see him and his wife doing selfies right in front of the falls, and to see pictures of them with the beautiful Horseshoe Falls right there. I've had people say to me, it brought it home. It made it really realistic. This person you're seeing all over the media was here not that long ago. So anyway, happy to continue to support our Ukrainian friends. Key to the city, we should have a picture of Erica Kasupinen. She was the winner of Survivor 41. Here she is receiving the key to the city right here in council chambers on Friday of last week. She's the first Canadian to ever win, and she used resilience and ingenuity, creativity, and she was incredibly successful. And she talked about having built the skills to her success in Niagara Falls working in the tourism industry. She said, you have to learn to deal with all sorts of people from all over the world and adapt to all kinds of situations. So she was really, really excited. She brought all of her family, who was originally from the Philippines, and they were just so happy and so proud. And Gino's Pizza in town was also excited. They really got caught up in it, and they made a pizza in the shape of the Survivor flame. So she was really excited about that, and the family got to take that as well. The one other thing I'd mention about the key to the city, it was designed as a one-of-a-kind piece of art by local artist Sky Hicks. And Sky has done and won many awards, national awards, and she did an incredible job of painting. And if you get a good close-up of that, you'll see there's the skyline, the Canadian flag, you'll see the falls. It really is amazing. It's like she needed to have a magnifying glass to paint it. But I can tell you that Erica was really, really excited to get the key to the city. So congratulations to Erica, and thank you to Sky, and thank you for everybody involved. Put Niagara Falls on the map one more time in such a good way. Council representation, I'd like to thank Councillor Lococo for representing the city at the interview for Coldest Night of the Year 12-hour challenge. Thank you, Councillor. And I'd like to thank Councillor Pietrangelo and Strange for walking in the coldest night of the year as well. So thank you for doing that.
We did reach our goal of just over $2,000, along with less top checks.
Oh, that's great. Well done. Well done. Excellent job. Excellent job. Farmers Market recognition. So we've got some photos, I believe, from our Farmers Market. I believe. We're having a little bit of a communication issue here with our IT stuff. Well, anyway, there were supposed to be some photos. The Niagara Falls Farmers Market won, here we go, won 2021 Farmers Market of the Year in Ontario. Pretty incredible when you think about it. It's a temporary location at the McBain Center. Now, the advantage of where it is now, much better visibility and accessibility. They had great attendance. Of course, that end of the city is really growing. And congratulations to the Recreation and Culture staff, as well as the Farmers Market Coordinator, Janet Zilstra. So they did a great job marketing it. It was very, very popular and in a great high-profile location that seemed to be very popular with the residents. So congratulations. And our last announcement, Jim Pay. We've got some photos that Jim Pay did as well. Jim is an artist. At one time, he was a former city councillor in the city of Niagara Falls. Councillor Thompson will remember that from many moons ago. Good friend, yeah, and a real super guy. I was lucky enough to get to meet him and his wife and see a lot of his art. And it's been evaluated by our culture department, and they looked at it. And, well, James Pay has been some of his art has been donated to the city's collection and accepted. Former City Councilor Jim Pay contacted the office saying he wanted to donate some of his work to the city of Niagara Falls. After selections were made by the city's Public Art Advisory Task Force, 2 pieces were selected. So Brink of the Horseshoe Falls, Niagara, which you can see. Niagara Falls from the American side. So we'll switch over to that one. Both are acrylic on canvas. So Jim studied under the late A.J. Carson, the last of the members of Canada's famous Group of 7. So real interesting art. We'd like to thank Jim for his generous donations. And lastly, I'd like to mention we had a grand opening of Wings Up, Niagara Falls, which is in the same plaza as Garrison Subs. I'd like to thank Councillor Thompson and Dabrowski for joining me for this grand opening. Another business having faith in the city of Niagara Falls and putting their entrepreneurial spirit in front. So make sure you check out Wings Up. All the wings are fresh, never frozen, and lots of other yummy things that they offer. Next council meeting will be Tuesday, March the 22nd. So mark that in your calendars. So now we move along to deputations and presentations. So first order, 6.1, is the Niagara Regional Police Services. And we do have a presentation added. I'd like to introduce our Chief of Police, Mr. Brian McCullough. And Brian will be presenting along with his team shortly as all of the data is brought up on the screen through our IT department. There he is. Chief, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I've got Inspector Lagrataria that's going to be joining me as well. I'm not sure if he's joined in or not.
Can you see him, Sean? Yeah, it looks like he's there. We'll take a few minutes to get sorted out here to make sure everyone's in the room.
I'll make him
What's that? Okay. So our IT person, Sean Oatley, is going to make everyone a panelist so that they can turn, oh, there we go. There's our inspector. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And is there anyone else you're waiting for, Chief?
I think that's good for now. I can provide some additional comments about some additional representation that we have in a few minutes, if that works.
Sure. Oh, yeah. The floor is yours. And there you've got
Terrific.
Police Board Member Bob Gale as well.
Terrific. Thanks, Mayor Diodati and councillors. And again, thanks for the opportunity to join you this evening and to share some insights into the Niagara Regional Police Service. I'll keep my opening comments brief before turning the presentation over to the District Commander for Niagara Falls, Inspector Mario Lagrateria. When we look at serving our community as a command team, we really have three overarching guiding principles. That's assisting victims of crime, member wellness, and community engagement. As we see the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions, we look forward to resuming with attending community events and connecting with members of the community that our members are really so proud to serve and protect. Engaging with our community is where we learn what's happening and how we can work together to address issues that are taking place in our community that we might not hear otherwise. I often say that the district commander is the local chief of police for the district that they oversee, and they really should be the first point of contact when dealing with any local issue. And I know that many of the councillors in the mayor's office have worked closely with Mario to address areas of concern in the past. Should councillors have any questions or concerns relating to policing matters in Niagara Falls, I would strongly encourage you to connect with Inspector Lagraterio. And I'm confident that Mario will lend any assistance he can to address your concerns. With me today, I'm joined by Deputy Chief of Operations Brett Flynn and Superintendent Marco Giannico, who oversees all frontline policing across the region. And I'm also joined by Regional Councillor and Police Service Board Member Bob Gale. All will be available to assist with any questions that may arise following Mario's presentation. Having said that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it now over to Inspector Lagrateria for the presentation, and I'll be available following the presentation should there be any specific questions.
That's
So,
great. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, everyone, again, for having me, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We can go to the next slide, please. So simply put, this is our mission statement. The Niagara Regional Police Service is dedicated to serving and protecting residents and visitors within the regional municipality of Niagara. In partnership with the community, we shall provide quality policing services with integrity, diligence, and sensitivity. Next slide. So as you're likely aware, senior command structure consists of our chief of police, supported by two deputies. Deputy chief of police for police operation services is Brett Flynn, and deputy chief of police for support services is Bill Forty. Next slide, please. And here's a quick overview of our current organizational structure. Much like many large organizations, it shows the scope of the service and the areas of expertise within the Niagara Regional Police Service. From a uniform perspective, we have 774 sworn members as a part of our authorized strength, from the chief of police, 2 deputies, 5 superintendents, 14 inspectors, 31 staff sergeants, 109 sergeants, and 599 constables. On the civilian side of things, we have 326 members consisting of 1 director, 12 managers, and 313 civilian support staff personnel. Next slide. So breaking down the organizational chart even further, I wanted to give you a snapshot of various programs that we have here in Niagara, from executive services to the district frontline operations, as well as the operational support services. So for operational support services, the resources above and beyond the number of specifically assigned patrol officers who are able to assist with more complex needs and investigations, such as our special victims units, domestic violence and child abuse, as well as our emergency services, including canine, tactical officers, and our traffic enforcement officers, to name a few. So most members of the public only see the frontline uniform officer driving within the community and answering calls for service. But at any time, these specialty units can be deployed to assist where appropriate for that tailored response. Next slide. So further, we also have corporate services, technology services, operational support in roles such as 911 communications and the real-time operations center or court services. I'll use an example of an armed robbery call where a suspect may have fled on foot. The call to police starts with our communications unit, where the 911 call is received, processed, and dispatched for a frontline response. Depending on the location of the robbery and the information available at the time, our real-time operations center will immediately look to access cameras available in the area. That frontline uniform response is the initial emergency response, where they'll attend the scene, secure it, tend to any victims and ensure public safety, and look to locate the suspect. Our K9 unit and our emergency task unit would be activated due to the suspect fleeing and mention of a firearm. Additional resources may be needed, and members from our traffic enforcement unit, for example, can be called to assist. District detectives or specialty detectives would be notified and could attend to investigate and interview and take statements and canvass. Our forensic services would be called to process the scene and any evidence retrieved. Our corporate communications would be looped in to ensure that media releases are prepared and would respond to any media queries. When an arrest is made, that person would be taken into custody. They'd be brought to our central holding facility where they'd be processed by both police officers and special constables. There's definitely lots of areas of policing behind the scenes, not to mention our mechanics and staff at Fleet Services or our IT personnel responsible for phones and cameras and computers, our finance and human resources, along with our career development recruiting unit, even members of our training unit. All of them help support that visible response you see on a day-to-day. Next slide. So looking at statistical trends over the year, there is a consistent increase in calls for service. So 2021 from 2020, we saw almost a 17% increase, which could be partially attributed to an initial dip in calls for service due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but also an overall increase in call volume. So it's important to note, though, that beginning May 1st, 2021, the NRPS, through the communications unit, began using a new set of priority dispatch codes, which included a priority 6 call. And these types of calls did not require police dispatch and were added to our call taking process to track all incoming calls and to better quantify all the work being done. So in 2021, there were 18,036 priority 6 calls region-wide. Of those calls, of all calls, minus the priority 6, which was new, there was 130,306 incidences, resulting in a 3.27 increase in calls for service over 2020 and a 1.13% decrease from 2019. Next slide, please. So as you can see in 2 District, a similar trend has occurred. And in 2021, when compared to 2020, we saw just over a 16% increase in calls for service. In 2021, in 2 District, there were 4,331 of those priority 6 calls. So taking those away, we saw a 4.71% increase in calls for service over 2020 and a 5.31 increase in calls for service when compared to 2019, which was pre-COVID. So that increase in calls when compared to 2019 didn't mirror our region-wide trend, which is likely the result of the fact that people continue to visit Niagara Falls in 2021 and our tourist area in lieu of cross-Canada travel and international travel, which definitely minimized the effect of the pandemic on police-related calls for service here at our district. Next slide. So in 2021, we also saw the implementation of our mobile crisis rapid response team. That's MCERT in 2 District. Prior to that, and since 2015, this particular service was only available in St. Catharines and Thorold. So MCERT includes a uniformed police officer paired with an experienced mental health professional, and in our case, a social worker, who attends as first responders to calls for service. The duo works 12 hours a day from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 7 days a week. Together, they can assess, triage, de-escalate, and provide resources to individuals in mental health or addiction-related crisis. They can divert individuals from unnecessary hospital emergency department visits and involvement with the justice system, mitigating strain on police resources. They can provide appropriate links to community services to both the individual in crisis and to their caregivers if available. So in 2021, specific to 2 District, MCERT attended 578 calls for service and referred 168 calls directly to COAST, which is our crisis outreach and support team. Across the region in 2021, the MCERT program diverted 71% of all mental health related calls, which totaled over 1,000 occurrences where an individual did not go directly to the hospital. When examining the graph we have in front of us here, in 2021, 2 district mental health calls for service, which did include those no dispatch calls, resulted in a 42.35% increase when compared to 2020 and a 64.43% increase from 2019. So this increase is mirrored across other areas in our region and was also anticipated in 2 districts with the introduction of the MCERT program. What is worth highlighting is the change in call categorization in 2021. It better tracks the types of interactions police officers have when dealing with mental health related calls. So for an example, if an individual is violent or not violent. So with the introduction of MCERT, the numerous 2 district officers who receive specialized training, that training, in addition to this newly deployed unit, has allowed us to better track interactions appropriately and not categorize them as simply something like an unwanted person or a welfare check. Next slide, please. So in 2 districts, when reviewing common criminal investigations, there was a 6.6% increase in break and enter between 2020 and 2021, which was roughly 33 reports. There was a 25% increase in motor vehicle thefts between 2020 and 2021, which equates to 72 reports taken. There was a very slight decrease, approximately only 1%, of theft from autos between 2020 and 2021, and a 68% decrease in robberies between 2020 and 2021, which was roughly 26 occurrences. Next slide, please. So our 2 district administrative office has community liaison officers assigned to it. And when things arise, we tend to liaise with you, Mr. Mayor, and CAO Burgess, and Ms. Carrie Campbell. Mike Malakowski is currently my acting sergeant, working side by side with Constable Scott McGill, who most of you likely all know. Both officers are heavily tied to the community. They liaise with the city's Mr. Matthew Bilodeau and his traffic team regarding traffic complaints to coordinate focus enforcement efforts. They also liaise with Mr. Gerald Spencer and his team for bylaw and any other issues. A quick example of this was our municipal transit project that occurred earlier this year in January, which saw Police Constable McGill and Municipal Law Enforcement Officer Mills conduct random checks for mask bylaw compliance on city buses. In addition to the city, both my officers work very closely with the region and other support services in Niagara, such as Niagara Street Outreach. They deal with issues such as homelessness and drug addiction. To support that 7-day week response from my office, there's been identified frontline officers from each platoon in 2 districts who have shadowed Constable McGill, and they are able to assume his responsibilities when Scott is on leave and as well on weekends. Our team works closely with BIAs and other community stakeholders in Niagara Falls to meet regularly to discuss local issues. This information is not only relayed back to my office, but to the frontline supervisors and their constables to ensure that they're informed and can focus any enforcement efforts accordingly. Niagara Falls has seen challenges with opioids and fentanyl use, and I'm aware that the city of Niagara Falls is contributing to funding outreach programming and a drop-in center. So our police service, and more specifically my 2 district administrative unit, will be growing this year, as it's anticipated that the newly approved Community-Oriented Response and Engagement Unit, or CORE, will be established in April of this year. The goal of the unit is to reaffirm our commitment to youth engagement, community-centric policing, and strengthen our working relationship with community stakeholders, really focusing on crime prevention and to increase the safety and well-being of both residents and visitors within the district. Similarly to what Mike and Scott already do now, these added officers will be in a position to engage with the public and actively participate in any integrated focus groups with our community partners to address root causes and problem-solve situations. We have designated foot patrols that are facilitated from my office within Niagara Falls that provide an added officer presence and officer availability for local stakeholders. Currently, Queen Street and the Clifton Hill area are areas in Niagara Falls that are the primary areas of location. However, based on resources and trending calls for service, additional locations can be identified and focused on. An example of this was last year in the spring around the area of Patrick Cummings Memorial Sportsplex in Chippewa. We had complaints of off-road vehicle use, so we ended up deploying an initiative out there to address that. Crime prevention initiatives in general are continuously being implemented by either constables on platoon or by my district detectives in the criminal investigations unit or my street crime unit. Initiatives developed are to address local concerns. They've included compliance checks for individuals released with various conditions, restaurant and bar checks with our other law enforcement partners, lock it or lose it campaigns in high-risk areas, traffic complaints for speeding and stop signs, and school bus issues. And more recently, compliance checks in relation to the pandemic and restrictions as a result. In 2021, 2 District also created its own Twitter account at 2NRPS, which provides public education regarding various district initiatives and showcases some of the work that my 2 district officers are doing. And then finally, with regards to CCTV cameras, both provincial funding and city funding were secured in relation to a government grant to respond to violent crimes associated with guns and gangs. So these funds have been utilized to install cameras throughout the city of Niagara Falls. Now, currently, we have 23 CCTV cameras monitoring designated areas within the falls. Note, when monitoring a designated traffic intersection, there's 2 cameras that are installed, one which is pan tilt zoom and another one that's 180 degrees fixed, and that allows for full coverage of the intersection. All these cameras are linked directly to our real-time operations center, and they're monitored by our analysts there. We're currently looking at expanding our CCTV coverage in Niagara Falls as well. Areas of interest must be intelligence-driven in order to prevent and to respond to crime. So busy intersections near access points onto highways or roadways in and out of the city have proven to be beneficial when we investigate crimes. With that being said, and from speaking with the current staff sergeant in our RTOC, Mark DeGidio, we are willing to work with various business improvement associations and business owners to independently assess their needs and to assist with community safety and crime prevention strategies, which in the end may include CCTV cameras. Finally, just as a reminder, just as we're currently doing, any concerns can continue to be directed to my office so that I can assess the issue with my staff, and then we can coordinate a focused response where appropriate. That's it. Next slide is questions.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Mario, and I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor. If any of the councillors or yourself have any questions, we'd be happy to address them.
Yeah, that's great. And also maybe just before we do, I see we've got Commissioner Bob Gale on the line, and I didn't know if Commissioner, if you had, or if I call you Commissioner, if I call you Councillor, I'm not really sure what to call you, but if you had any follow-up or further comments you wanted to add.
Mayor Jim, you can call me Bob anytime, okay? So Mario, great job on that presentation. And my guess is this will probably be the last time I report to this council on police matters, unless something comes up and you ask for it. So I want to thank the members of council here for the support and the respect that you've shown to the police over the years, and especially to Councillor Thompson, who by far, even when I was chair of this board, had more questions than anyone else there. That's not a knock against you, Wayne. You stood up for the citizens as well as the rest of the council here for a lot of questions on it. And I ask that you always ask questions of the police. And this was my motion to ask the chief to come and make presentations to all the cities and towns in our area. And he jumped on that. I'm proud to say that, I'll say it was 7 years ago, Chief, that you were made chief as well as the deputies. And I might be off by a year, but that's the product of getting old. But I was the chair at the time, and that was the proudest thing on this service that we did. We have a great chief, we have a great command team, and the #1 service in the province of Ontario, I believe, and the way we stand up for things. Now, we've done different things around the city that as a regional council with Vision Zero that was reported to you and that you voted on, and other items that you can have questions about, but you can never go after the integrity of this service, and especially the community involvement. That was, I'll say this for the chief, that was one of the biggest things that I was proud of with this service, for educating and community involvement rather than just arresting people. You see it with the way they handled the anti-vaxxer protests and the convoy protest up in Fort Erie. This is Canada. The chief handled it wonderful. I can't be prouder of this service. So as far as that, I just want to say thank you, Council, for the way you've supported us on this, and keep up with the questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you very much, Bob, and Chief, and Inspector Legretaria, and yes, I know Mr. McGill has been amazing. You know, like, it's a great team, very responsive when we have issues. As a matter of fact, and I couldn't believe I was not following you on Twitter at 2NRPS, so I am now. I just, as you were talking, I made sure, so I'm up to date on all the information that's going on in our backyard. So that's terrific. So do we have any questions of council for our presenters? Councillor Iannoni.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to all the speakers, and to the chief and the inspector. I was the chair of your community policing for 12 years ago, and I'm thrilled to see you come and make this presentation. I've always said the community needs to know exactly what you're doing, and this is a phenomenal presentation. But I have a question, and it's appropriate that Councillor Gale is here tonight on this question. He was here at the last council meeting, or maybe it was the one before that, in regards to finding needles on our trails. And at that time, Councillor Lococo and I made a comment that, Streetworks has been doing an amazing job in safe needle exchange sites. And maybe that's something the city of Niagara Falls needs to look at. And maybe through the inspector or the chief, are you in any talks or conversations with anybody at Streetworks in regards to perhaps that becoming a reality here? Because I really do think, given the good work that they do, that would help get a lot of needles out of the parks, off our trails, and access areas for the public. So maybe one of you could answer.
Yeah, I can take that, Chief. So I am familiar with the program, and actually Scott McGill in my office, I'm not sure if you're aware of, he works, like I said, very close with the Niagara Tree Outreach. That's definitely something we can look into. I personally haven't had any conversations. I know we have responded to calls in that area, and the city's been great sending out teams to clean up. I've also had Scott and then anybody who shadows him go through, and they've done extra patrols in and around that area. So we are aware, and we are putting the resources we can into those areas, I guess you'd say. But it's definitely something I'll add to my list that we can look into to see what our options are moving forward when it comes to using something like that.
Thank you. And I have had opportunities to work with Constable McGill, you said? Constable McGill, in regards to a number of homeless issues that I've had to contact, because he also was working with AJ, and phenomenal team that we have there. And I just want to congratulate you on your mental health team, because that's been a long time coming, because the majority of people living hard have mental health issues right along with addiction issues. And often the treatment is not as wonderful. Not as wonderful as it should be on the street. So being treated with dignity and respect with a mental health unit, I think will go a long way to helping them get some sort of normalcy back, because we know living rough is isolating. There's no socialization, and it's difficult every single day of their life. So I want to commend you on that. I'm really glad to see that happening.
Thank you very much. I'll definitely extend that over to those teams, and just be mindful. And I did mention it that there's a lot of officers in the area now that have this extra training. It's our crisis intervention training. So whether they are paired with that social worker or not, I believe the service that we're giving now is far better than we were in the past. The officers are definitely, this is a priority for them, and they do their best to ensure that they remain professional and to deal with people with the respect they deserve.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Inspector. And Commissioner Gale, did you want to maybe mention anything about the meeting you had with Streetworks and staff?
Yeah, I'm just not used to Commissioner Gale, but regardless, thank you, Mayor Jim. You set up a meeting that we had with Streetworks, and they talked about the hot spots in the city where needles have been found. And I also read a report in the news last week of more issues with that. Mayor, from your ideas, we were talking to the DIAs and other businesses. I know my daughter has a business somewhere near one of the hot spots, and for donations to help have teams to go around and clean up these spots. We're being proactive on it, and I know that Lori Lococo and Carolyn Iannone have both mentioned their involvement in this and their interest in this. So any advice you have for them on this is always welcome. But I think it'll always be a problem. We know that it's not the way to solve it by just picking up the needles and things, but we have to do what we can. So we're trying to get donations towards helping Streetworks to have teams to go around and clean these things up on a regular basis.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Is there anything else, Councillor Iannone, on that?
No, that's good. Councillor Lococo and I have met a number of times with Streetworks, and we've had our naloxone training through them. And Inspector, I'm assuming most of your guys have a naloxone training too. I was listening to talk radio today, and I understand, I didn't catch which level of government is now mandating that different agencies, different levels of government have naloxone training and naloxone on hand when they work. I'm not sure how that affects municipalities, but they were set out a litany of groups or agencies that now have to have them. So, and how important it is and how those seconds matter and how that naloxone it really is a lifesaver at those moments. So it's something everybody needs to learn, I think.
Well, I can confirm on our end that all our officers are trained with naloxone and they carry it, so that it's readily available. So that is something that we do have.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, so we're looking for a motion to receive the presentation tonight. Moved by Councillor Lococo, second by Councillor Pietrangelo. We'll call that vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's great. That's unanimous. So I'd like to thank Chief McCullough and Inspector Lagriteria and all your team. Appreciate all the work you do. You do a terrific job. And it's nice that we have these open lines of communication. And thank you to Commissioner Gill for having these presentations take place. It's great that we keep everyone together. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your council meeting.
Oh, we'll enjoy it all right. You can stick around by all means if you're looking for something to do.
Got a conflict. I'm sorry. I'll have to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Okay. Good night. Thank you. Okay. So moving along, how are we doing here? We've got our acting clerk working tonight, Margaret. She's doing a good job. So far, so good. She hasn't thrown anything at me yet. So, I mean, there's lots of time. Lots of time. Good thing I have this plastic wall protecting me. Okay, moving on to item 7, reports. We've got CAO 2022-01, and there's a recommendation that the mayor and CAO be provided delegated authority to extend the agreement with the Niagara Falls Hotel Association on the collection of the municipal accommodation tax under the same terms as the previous agreement. Okay, moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Thompson. Did you want to speak to that? Yeah. Yep. And then we got Councillor
I just want to say that this is very important for our community, for jobs, for hotels and attractions. This has worked out, implemented by the government, and it's something that is really important for marketing in our community. And I would the Hotel Association, congratulate them and let them know that we're approving this. And anytime they have any changes or want further dialogue, we would be available for them. And I'm a pleasure to second the motion. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Lococo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't on council at the time back in 2018 when this came on, but I was really pleased to see that the municipal accommodation tax was implemented because it brought transparency, accountability. Everyone knew what was going to be charged. It was a great program. And I have no problem with the program. I love the program. The only issue that I am having is that there's there's a comment on our website under Let's Talk Niagara Falls. It says, should the city choose to implement a tax, it would have the flexibility to determine the design of the tax, including the rates, administration, collection, and scope of application. The last one was $2 per room per night. if I understand correctly, this agreement gives the hotel association unlimited, that they could change the rates when they wanted to, as much as they want to within that 10 years. Am I correct on that?
No, this is $2.
Yeah, through the chair, the design of the tax is that the hotel association determines the tax and we collect the tax. So the hotel association and its members are the ones responsible for setting the tax and assessing the market impact of that tax, and then utilizing those funds to drive demand back to it. So you are correct, they can assess the tax, they can pass a vote to look to change the level of taxation, and we would execute under that direction.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. I think when this came in 2018, it was the transparency that everybody liked about it, that the city had some sort of dialogue or control about it. So I'm just concerned that it's an open-ended conversation, that, you know, it could be changed in 6 months to 5%, $5. It could be changed a year after that. We don't have any control. And as I said, on the website, it does say that we have the flexibility of the rates. So that's the only concern I have. I think the program is great. There's transparency, accountability. Everybody knows what's happening. I'm just concerned that we don't have any conversation about that rate.
Thank you for that. One of the other good side benefits, since they created this, the city will I'm sorry. Rookie mistake. I appreciate those comments. And one of the side benefits of having this accommodation tax is that we no longer have to fund the Festival of Lights. We no longer fund Niagara Falls tourism. So it's been really nice, and they're able to fund other things, you know, and it's as it should be. So tourism pays for tourism, and tourists pay that fund, not the locals, which is a good thing. But it's a good point. I mean, so far it's worked well. We've had it for a number of years, and it's maintained, and it's done pretty good. So you know, but appreciate the input and the comments.
We'll correct the website.
What's that?
We'll change the wording on the website.
So we're going to fix the website, clean it up a little bit. Any other questions or comments of council? Yes, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay, I've got Councillor Strange and then Councillor Iannoni.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And when you look on different, if you Google municipal taxes throughout Canada, and specifically Ontario, Niagara Falls is one of the lowest. You know, in Ottawa they have a 4%. So if you did the math on that, you'd be roughly probably almost getting $8 per room. So when you look at this and you judge it against different municipalities, Niagara Falls come down as one of the lowest.
Yeah, definitely is. Thank you for that. Councillor Iannoni.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think that's what Councillor Lococo was talking about. Nobody's arguing that this program hasn't benefited tourism and Festival of Lights and all the other programs. I think what she was asking is, the first time, and she can correct me, the first time we approved this, it was $2, subject to coming back to council to change. And you said that you'll clean up the wording, and I'm reading the document now as we're reading. So the document says that they can raise it, that they'll charge $2 per room. Was Lori correct? Because I'm having a hard time hearing you. Is Lori correct that passing this tonight allows hotels to raise it any time to any rate?
Mr. CAO.
Through the chair, and that's how we've interpreted the document. Is it's the hotel members who are the ones setting and collecting the tax, and who has the implication of any downside demand risk on what the rates are. They're the ones who set it. They collect it and they remit it to us. It has to go through their hotel association though, so it has to have acceptance of their trade body. So no individual hotelier can change it, but the trade body has to, because they have to live with the consequences of the rates that they set with regards to the implications on their demands for their services. So if the hotel association passed a motion to increase it from $2 to $10, they would present that to this council, and we would accept it and collect it as is. You know, if this council wants to, if the council wants to change it where the council has to sign off on it, we could take that back to the hotel association. I just think it's difficult for us to dictate to the businesses that are being impacted by this, you know, how they want to charge their customers and how they want to utilize their funds. You know, I think the intent of it was designed to have the private sector determine those critical issues and determine how they're going to spend the money that they collect for it. But you know, staff's here to take the advice of council if they'd like to see a change in that document.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Burgess, I don't care what they charge. It's going to be customer driven. It will be what the person wants to pay. I think the point Lori was getting is, has this document changed from the first document? They can charge, and if they have to go back to their association, then come back to us. I agree, they're running the risk. They're either going to market themselves out of where people won't stay there, or people don't care and they're going to pay it. You have to pay it everywhere you go. We just wanted the document to be clear and transparent. So I'm not arguing that they can do it. I'm just saying if it is different from the first thing we passed, then this is not a substantial, it is not an unsubstantial change. I think it's a substantial change, and we just want to make sure that it's transparent.
Yeah, so I think the intent when the MAT first came in was that design it in a way that the council accepted it. And I think the way this council accepted it was that the Hotel Association was the body that would determine how the market would be. So I think those wordings around flexibility came out of the original provincial decrees on how to set up a municipal tax. This council designed it in a certain way with the Hotel Association to be what I would call the governing body of the MAT. And so I think we need to clean up the website because, you know, the way the MAT has been developed by the city council is, as you say, Councillor Iononi, let the Hotel Association kind of deal with it, and then, you know, it's their responsibility. If council wants to insert themselves into it, that's something I'd have to take back to the Hotel Association. But I think the wording that's on that website is from the original design that the province was when they were shifting that MAT tax over. So that's why I said I think we need to clean that up. I think we need to make reference to the actual document now, and I think I would post the actual agreement on the website so it's transparent to the you know, to anybody who's looking at it.
Yeah, because the impression is council had already inserted themselves in that to make the decision, and if that's not the case, that should be expressed on our website.
I agree with you. And I don't know the history on how the $2 was set, if council was involved in it or not, but I would say that...
the hotel.
Yeah, the hotel. So I would just say that was, council designed it in a way that the Hotel Association determined it. So I would agree with you, to both councillors. I think we need to clean up the public website end of it to be very clear that this is something that the Hotel Association deals with, and we just administer it on their behalf.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Lococo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all of this conversation. I think it's important. Again, I'm just going after accountability, transparency, and the way that it was laid out back in 2018 was that the city had the control of the rates, and that's not what this document is. So I just wanted to make sure, and I hope that we don't go from $2 per room to an exorbitant amount. But as you said, the hoteliers, if they do put a higher percentage, then they don't get the visitors. That's going to impact them. And I guess the other end, when I was talking to the CAO, is if it is increased, Mr. CAO, could you talk about the increased work that the city might have to do to administer it then?
Through the chair, you know, we've actually worked pretty well with the Hotel Association. We've redesigned some of our policies and procedures to get it working a little bit better. The rate doesn't add that much more work. So whether we're collecting $10 per room or $2 per room, our work is effectively the same. You know, there's probably a few more phone calls we're dealing with from, you know, residents who want to understand why they're paying $10 and that, but it would be pretty marginal, the additional work.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask that if there is a change, that it just come back to council so we know about it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair request, and we can notify that, and we could probably potentially put that on the website too for public disclosure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Thompson. We'll call that vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you for that, everyone. Item 7.2, 2022 plow truck procurement. So, okay, moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Dabrowski. So we've got three recommendations. One, that we approve the capital budget for inclusion of the cost, that an increase to the annual fleet reserve contribution through vehicle rental rates be referred to the 2023 budget, that staff report back during the 23 capital budget process to give us an update. So we'll call that vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that is unanimous. Thank you for that. Item 7.3, L2022-02, prospective land acquisition by the city, road widening for Niagara South Hospital, Biggar Road. Councillor Pietrangelo has declared a conflict and is leaving the room. And we have three recommendations. One, in the event council determines that it's the best interest of the public to do so, city enter into an agreement of purchase of sale with the Niagara Health System. Secondly, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement of purchase and sale. And lastly, city solicitor, or in her absence, the CAO or his designate is authorized to execute all documents. Motion by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Strange. Do we have any discussion to that motion? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you for that. Maybe we can call Councillor Pietrangelo back in the meeting. He left?
Mr. Mayor, I have to declare a conflict on the next one, so I will go out and look for him.
Okay, no, don't go too far though, Councillor. Oh, wait, actually, isn't this one being?
Actually, stay right there.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Yeah, Mr. CAO, did you want to comment on the letter, the downtown Canada Day celebrations?
Yeah, with an update to council, with some additional information and discussion, it's been decided by staff that we'd like to withdraw this report. Staff will run the Canada Day Parade as in prior years and just maintain maintain our processes from prior years. So there's no need to discuss this report at this time.
Okay. Do we need to receive, or it's pulled?
It's pulled.
It's pulled, so it's not even to be dealt with. Yes, Councillor Pietrangelo.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I was wondering if we could just defer it instead of saying that we're going to run it again. Maybe we could have some more dialogue with the downtown BIA. And so just defer the motion to approve the recommendation this week. And, you know, maybe our reps on the downtown BIA could have some dialogue with the board themselves.
Okay,
and,
I just want to put Councillor Lococo into a situation, so.
Yeah, I understand. But
Okay.
I also don't know.
Let's give her a chance to maybe leave, just in case. I don't want to get her
Okay.
into a spot.
Yep.
I would say, and I'll look to the clerk, a pull or a deferral is effectively the same thing, except a deferral has to be required to come back at some point in time, where a pull, we can just reissue a revised report.
So it's up to you, Councillor Pietrangelo, how you'd like to handle that.
Yeah, it's just that part of the words from Mr. Burgess through you to him was that staff take the parade back over this year. So instead of actually making that part of the motion, I'd rather just simply defer the report, have some more dialogue with the downtown BIA, see whether or not we can come to an agreement, and then bring something back.
Sure. Yeah. I can understand that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you'll make that motion then, Councillor?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, you're good with that. Okay, great. So motion for deferral by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Strange. And this will be deferred until such time that staff have a chance to meet with the BIA and our reps are able to talk to the BIA and bring it back. So we just can't debate it because it's deferred. Motion for deferral. Was there some issue on timing or anything like that?
Well, I was just hoping for the next meeting, just July's not.
Oh, your microphone's not on. Oh, yeah, timing, we can discuss timing.
Yeah, timing, I was just gonna see if we could bring that back before the next council meeting on the
22nd? Yeah.
Just because July's around the corner.
Yeah, it's coming fast. Yeah, okay, so we'll have that addition. Good with the mover, good with the seconder for the next meeting, March the 22nd. Okay, great. So let's call that vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's, Councilor Iononi, you good with that too?
Well, because I had a question before the motion for deferral went. I'll support it, and I'll call the CAO and talk to him tomorrow. You kind of cut off discussion there, so I'll support it and then ask my questions tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Well, in motion deferral, you can't have any discussion, right? Like I don't have much choice. Okay, so you're in favor though? Yes, okay, thank you. So you got that, Ms. Clerk? Okay, great. So we can call back Councillor Lococo, please, Mr. Now that's how you come back into the meeting, Councillor Pietrangelo. We got to tie a string, find out where he went. Okay. Consent agenda. So what's the will of council on the consent? Is there anyone want to lift anything? Let's start like that. Is there anybody want to lift anything on the consent agenda? No? Okay, so what's the will of council? Councillor Thompson? Okay, motion by Councillor Thompson to move the consent agenda, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. If there's no further discussion, then we'll call that vote. All those in favor? Okay, Councillor Reno, yes? Okay, great. So consent agenda is done. Moving on to communications. So now with our clerk, we're doing things slightly different. We've broken things down into two categories. I'm sorry, it was three? Did you want to explain to Council, Margaret? Margaret is, of course, our acting clerk tonight, and she's going to explain to us how we're doing communications.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, going forward, we have compiled the various pieces of communication that we receive in the clerk's office. As such, this particular meeting, we have broken them down into three sections. The first one will deal with approving and supporting various pieces of communication. The second one will address receiving and filing other pieces of communication. And the third will be to refer to staff. They will be itemized through their various levels of support or communication that request for communication that has been articulated to the clerk's department.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So, okay, motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Dabrowski, that we approve items 10.1 through 9 point communications. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 9.
Mine says. Okay, is mine not back? Did we change the numbers? Do I have to look? See my, Sean, can you have a look?
Are you on the,
And just a reminder, I think
Town of Virgil?
No, Town of Ajax one?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, all right. My mistake, my apology. 9.1 through 9.6. Okay.
and I have a conflict on 9.2.
Okay, Councillor Dabrowski has a conflict on 9.2. Yes, Councillor Strange.
Can I speak to 9.2? Is that okay?
Yeah. The Polish National Union one? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I just want to recognize, we're all watching what's
Microphone.
going on. Just want to recognize we're all watching what's going on in Ukraine and the invasion of Russia. And, a lot of elderly and children are fleeing to Poland. And I just want to recognize that country because they're just doing an amazing job of bringing in people. And there's like an 18-hour wait to get into the country. And they've brought in over 600,000 people. And people in Poland, if you watch on the news, they have signs saying, in different households, they're not related, say, yeah, we'll take in six, we'll take in 8 people into our house. So they really have come and helped their country beside them. So I just kudos to Poland, and I'm glad we're recognizing them.
Yeah, here. That's it's amazing what's happening, actually. Okay, that's great. Thank you for addressing that. So we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you. So now we go down to 10. Now, okay, now I'm in the game. Is that right, Ms. Clerk? I'm better? Okay, good. Okay, now 10, there's a recommendation that we receive and file items 10.1 through 10.6. Councillor Lococo? Okay, motion by Councillor Lococo, second by Councillor Thompson. Okay, and if there's no discussion to that, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, Councillor Iononi, you're good? Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you for that. Now, we're going to go down to 11. Okay. Okay, there's a motion, correspondence regarding gas-powered leaf blowers. Motion by Councillor Pietrangelo to refer to staff, second by Councillor Dabrowski. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you for that. All right, that didn't go too bad. Ratification of in-camera, Ms. Clerk. Is there any ratification to take place?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. Council met earlier during an in-camera session on a property matter, and that there was further direction to staff, and a more fulsome ratification will be forthcoming at a future meeting to council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we've got notice of motion. Are there any notices of motion for today? No? Oh, okay. The bylaws. Now, we've got the first one, as I understand it, the clerk brought me up to speed, that the first one has already received a first and second reading, so we just need a third reading. Councillor Pietrangelo will make the motion, looking for a second of Councillor Strange, that we give bylaw 2021-86 a third reading. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. And then the bylaws. Motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Thompson, to give the remainder of the bylaws a first, second, and third reading. All those in favor? Okay, that's approved. Thank you for that. New business. Councillor Lococo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the requirements, the restrictions being dropped today, I know I brought this up before, but the 6-foot distance for our gallery, have we worked out something that people can start coming into our council meetings? Because now you don't have to show proof of vaccination to get in the building, but what are we doing about our residents that would like to come to a council meeting?
Okay, so we'll ask our CAO to comment on that.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. That's going to be an item for discussion. We were waiting for Dr. Hergy to finalize and agree with the provincial regulations. We only got notified of that on Monday. So we've set up, we were more, to be blunt, we were more focused on City Hall, Gale Center and McBain Center to get that up and running, and City Hall will be the next one. You still have to maintain 6 feet distances, so we'll likely have to mark the benches. You know, when you do that, you're probably only going to be allowed about 10 people in here. But that'll be our next focus with the clerk and our EOC to determine a process for here.
Thank you. Could that process also depend on when the person wants to come in, what topic they would like to? Some might not sit here for the whole time. They might just come in for one specific item and then leave. Would that be that process?
Yeah, that's a consideration because, and it makes it difficult then because now you have to queue them outside with 6 foot distances. So that's why it becomes more cumbersome, and we don't have the same amount of spacing for, obviously, for either staff or for council. So those things all have to be considered, how we want to deal with that. And there's also a security issue that we have to deal with regards to maintaining someone at the front door if someone wants to come, you know, for later part of the meeting. So
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Iannoni and then Dabrowski. I'm sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know for all of us who are on social media, we're getting bombarded with the pothole questions. Yeah. So in a Chippewa group yesterday, I said, I will ask our staff to explain why potholes are not being corrected right now. Because I know it's weather related and it can get pulled up. And if we could just give an explanation to residents, because our answer cannot be they're going to be there tomorrow and do it.
Okay, so Mr. Sure, okay.
Yeah, so if it's not coming from us, I'd like it to come from somebody who is knowledgeable as to why we're waiting to a certain time and a certain temperature.
Okay, we'll see if Mr. Nickel is available there he is, to address the councillor's comments.
Yep, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Staff are indeed out filling potholes. We follow provincial regulations with respect to the timing we have to respond to potholes. So our crews are limited and our materials are limited. Last week we doubled up our crews, but we can't sustain those levels dedicated strictly to potholes because it means we have other things that aren't getting done. So this year already we've patched over 500 potholes. Last week we had 5 crews dedicated to pothole patching, and we're really lucky to be hearing a great response from our residents. We're reporting potholes on our pothole report form. So the best advice I can have is to send in the locations on our pothole report form. They automatically go into our work orders. We know which roads and the timelines that we have to respond on those roads. For example, a local cul-de-sac allows us a little bit more time to respond than a major arterial because we work on a risk-based process. So we are working on hundreds of outstanding work orders, and there's a lot of pothole patching to be done. When we have winter weather conditions, then we have to switch our crews to plowing. We can't be patching potholes. So those are the only times that we're not doing that activity, or if there are other items that are requiring our attention, say emergency road repairs, trench repairs, we'll have to pull crews off to do some of those other priority items. But all the rest of the time, we're spending on pothole repairs at this time of the season.
Councillor?
No, thank you, because I thought it was weather related, and I will go on and stand corrected and let them know exactly what you just explained. It's not as easy as putting it in and having it done tomorrow. And everybody wants everything done yesterday. And that's just not going to happen in regards to the number of potholes we have. So I just wanted somebody to explain that to them.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Councillor Dabrowski?
And just to Councillor Ioannoni's point, I noticed the potholes in Chippewa as well, obviously. There's numerous reasons. There is a problem area that I've noticed. I'm in and out of Chippewa on a daily basis. Willoughby between Main Street and Weaver. And there was some construction there, some new development, and that road's just atrocious. I'm wondering, I won't make a motion, but maybe just through the CAO, maybe direction the staff, just to look at that area and concentrate on it over the next week or two. It's bad. There's no other word for it. I know there's problematic areas all throughout the city and we have a lot of challenges, but if we can kind of focus on that area, just to Councillor Ioannoni's point, I'm on that Chippewa group as well, and there was a lot of complaints about that, but just wanted to bring that
Mr.
forward.
Nichols jumped on because it looks like he's very excited to answer that question.
Oh, okay, good.
So Mr. Nichol, on Willoughby, between Main and Weaver, is the area of concern in Chippewa. Councillor Dabrowski's bringing forward. Do you have any?
And the reason I say that, there's school buses that are in it. It's a main thoroughway. Anyone that lives in Chippewa, they go down Willoughby, they access Sodom, they go out to the QEW. It's a well-traveled road. And the two elementary schools, Sacred Heart and the public school there as well, school buses are in and out of that area daily on at least 10 or 15 times a day. So I'll let Eric Nichols
We'll ask
speak.
the king of potholes, Mr. Nichol, to address this.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure that's a crown I really want to wear, but the feedback is really important, and I will take that back to our operations crews. We know that the underground infrastructure on Willoughby needs attention. It's in our capital forecast within the next 2 to 3 years. We want to focus on Main Street first next year, and then we'll continue working out on Willoughby the year after. So there is reluctance on our part to do a major resurfacing because we want to make sure we time it with the water and sewer work that's needed underneath. But it sounds to me like there's more attention needed, and we'll definitely send our resources there as soon as we can. Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thanks for that, Mr. Nichol. Anything else?
Speaking of Chippewa, the Chippewa sign, I made a post on my Facebook page about a week ago that was well received by some, not well received by others. The intent really from that post was, basically, I'm looking at a sign. Again, I live in Chippewa, so I drive by it on a daily basis. It needs repair. There's wood rotting, and even at night, when I'm driving down Willoughby at night, you can't even see the sign. There's no lighting. If there was lighting installed, it's no longer in operation. So wondering, and if I'm not sure if I do it through a motion, and I'm not following procedure, or maybe direction of staff, but maybe have staff come back with a report, just based on the current condition of the sign. Who's responsible for the upkeep of the sign. I heard not too long ago that at one point, maybe 10 years ago, the sign actually broke in half and city staff had to go out there and fix it. So I know there's a number of issues in Chippewa that we have to tend to. Great update from Eric Nichol, but maybe we can have staff look at that sign before we let it go and it becomes far too gone and it just becomes an eyesore in the city of Niagara Falls and the town of Chippewa.
So, Mr. CEO, how would you want to do that? Just a direction of staff, or?
Yeah, we'll take it as direction to bring a report back on that.
Great.
One more.
Yeah, of course.
I received a couple of emails from residents, Facebook messages from friends of mine out in Toronto that are looking to travel into the U.S. now that it's March 1st and things are opening up. thank God. And I looked on the city's website. I looked on Niagara Falls Tourism's website as well. There's no direction on what the status is, what you need to cross, what you need coming back in terms of rapid test. I'm wondering if maybe the CEO can speak to it, but if we could have communications or a website developer maybe make an update to our website that has a big flashing button on it that says if you're looking to come into Niagara Falls or looking to travel out of Niagara Falls, what you need. There's so many conflicting websites, and information's changed so much over the past 12 weeks, never mind the last 2 years. So I'm not sure what's right or what to read, and you can skim through the province's website, and there's a lot of conflicting information on that website as well. But either way, if we as a tourism leader can do our best job to make sure that we're providing the right tools and the right information to not only tourists, but to residents that are looking to leave and come back as well. But I can't seem to find the information on our city's website that's easily accessible, and a lot of information on the Niagara Falls Tourism website seems to be old. And when I say old, 3 weeks old, and it doesn't sound old, but 3 weeks makes a lot of difference in COVID times.
Yeah, Mr. CAO?
Thank you. Generally, we try not to help people looking to travel to the United States, but I take the for inbound people or people who are wanting to come to Niagara Falls. I think what we'll do, I'll talk to our staff. I think it's best to point them to the most up-to-date information, which is with the federal government and the provincial government. Have those links, so we're not doing it, but provide a summary of what the current status is here, and we'll talk to Niagara Falls Tourism also.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I respect that, and I know what you mean. I want to keep people here shopping locally. I go over the river, and that's what we call it, going over the river. So I'd like to know, we live in a border town. It happens. People go shop over the river. We want to keep them local, of course, but it's something that I think we need to be providing information on either way, just so we're providing the right information. Last thing I'd hate to see is one of us gives somebody information and then they're stuck at the border and they're not able to cross. So anyway, much appreciated.
No, it's a good point, and I get calls regularly about what the rules are, because there's a labyrinth of rules and they're continually shifting, and CBSA website is not helpful. It's confusing. There's so much information. It's poorly written and hard to follow. So you think you understand it, and then you're reading something seems to contradict the first part. It's not done very well. On their website, they could do a little better job, I think, being clear, simpler. So that's great. So we got direction of staff on that one too. I've got, did I have another councillor? Councillor Pietrangelo, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Your Worship, I just wanted to bring up the issue of a hospice in Niagara Falls, and I guess I'm hoping that at the end of my words, staff will let me know that perhaps they can report back to council on, what a municipality needs to do to help to facilitate, I guess, getting a hospice in their municipality or in their city. At first I thought it was, because St. Catharines was the largest, but now I do believe that there's other municipalities in the region that have hospices. I think Grimsby already has one, and I do believe that there's 2 more coming on stream. If I'm not mistaken, Welland is getting one, and so is Fort Erie.
Yep, exactly right.
And you can correct me again if I'm wrong, but
you're right.
But I think the region even has contributed capital dollars to these hospices in both Welland and Fort Erie. So I really don't want to miss the boat. I think it's a service that our residents would really, really appreciate. We have an aging population. Being able to die with dignity is something that everyone should have the right to do. And being in a hospice, if you've talked to anyone that's had a loved one pass at a hospice, it's like being at home. You're surrounded by your family, your loved ones. There's a lot of dignity involved in passing at a hospice. So, I think Niagara Falls is in a good position. We're the 2nd largest municipality in the region. We're also the fastest growing municipality, and we have an increasingly aging population. So I don't know if you need a motion, but I'd really like staff to, kind of give us some direction in terms of, what we can do as a municipality to help facilitate not only getting a hospice in Niagara Falls, but even some possible locations. I'm sure that we would want a nice serene setting for a place like that. So again, I don't know if you need a motion or if it's just staff that will report back. I'm happy to make a motion, Your Worship. I know we have a procedural bylaw, but I really think that the procedural bylaw, you know, can be overlooked in situations where, you know, you're not asking to spend money, or it's not a very complicated matter that you're dealing with, and, you know, so I'm happy to make a motion.
Well, why don't we do this? I'm going to ask the CAO to weigh in a second. And if we need to, I believe I confirmed with the clerk that if we want to waive the procedural bylaw, we need 2/3 majority. So we need 2/3 majority, which I don't think anybody would be opposed to report on a hospice.
I know.
And you're exactly right.
Yeah.
The biggest, the third biggest, the fourth biggest cities are all going to have them. And then Grimsby, I don't know where they fall in. Here's Niagara Falls without one. It's really quite silly. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way. Councillor Pietrangelo, they would love the idea, would throw their support behind it.
Yeah.
So why don't we ask our CAO what his thoughts are on the best way to move forward if we want to do this?
I would say it's up to council. I'm more than happy to take it away as staff direction and bring back a report. I happen to be the capital campaign chair for the hospice in St. Catharines, and that one was on leased land from the region on the Lynnhaven property. The one in Fort Erie is also on leased land from the region. So more than happy to bring back a report, but if this council wants to send a stronger message out there, that a motion from council, I think that's something for council to decide.
I do, Your Worship. I want us to go on record.
So you want to make a motion for?
I will.
Waive it, you gotta waive it first.
Yeah, that's what I mean. A motion to waive the procedural bylaw, which we need 2/3, which I think we'll need 4 or 5. Okay, motion and seconded by Councillor Dabrowski. Is that why your hand was up? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Councillor Lococo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let you know Councillor Iannoni got kicked off and she can't get back on. It's asking for a password.
She should just use the link that she had in her email.
Okay, thank you.
So there's no password?
When you use the link, it just all.
Oh, it's all, right, okay, together.
Just wait till she comes back.
Yeah, we can give it a, okay, so we've got a motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Dabrowski, that we waive the procedural bylaw. This requires a 2/3 vote so that you can bring forward a motion without a notice of motion. Okay, so we'll call that vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. So Councillor Pietrangelo, you want to put your motion on the floor?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Your Worship. Just in regards to Niagara Falls, hopefully getting a hospice in our boundaries, I would ask staff to simply write council a report that would just kind of give us some insight into how we as a municipality can help facilitate a hospice coming to our city, and perhaps some possible sites, Your Worship. I think that would be very useful to council. So I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Dabrowski. Is there any discussion to the motion to bring a report back on Niagara Falls getting a hospice? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Great job. Yes, Councillor Dabrowski. Oh, just before you do, if I could just draw your attention to the screen, the visit by President Zelensky. We're going to ask Heather if she can throw that up on the screen so that we can share with everybody the pictures of his visit here in the summer of 2019. 19, 20? No, 20. Yeah, 2019. So 2.5 years. So there he is, President Zelensky here visiting right at the brink of the falls. There we are with his wife and the late Sandy Bellows, who was chair of the Niagara Parks Commission at the time. And then there's, I think we've got another picture, a couple more pictures. Oh, we're going back to that same picture. Oh, there he is doing selfies. Is that cool, though? There's the president of Ukraine, who's the #1 news person on the planet right now, doing a selfie in Niagara Falls not that long ago with his wife, with all of his security. Very casual, he's very excited, sending the pictures. You can see him posting to social media, very active on social media. What's that? Yes, and I've got another picture, which I don't know why, but we didn't upload it. But he was wearing the chain of office that day that he was here, and I said, I'm going to direct all complaints in the city to you, Mr. President. You're now the mayor of Niagara Falls. So I think today he would rather have that job than the job he's got right now. But real gentleman, down to earth, humble, real unassuming, casual, I'll tell you, and he's got to show his mettle with what's going on in Europe right now. A true leader. Councillor Strange.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and it really kind of puts things in perspective. He was just here a few years ago, and now the president of his own country is suiting up and going to the front lines. I just want to add a few other people who are world championship boxers. Alexander Usyk, who's actually the heavyweight champion right now, 2 former world heavyweight champions, the Klitschko brothers, as well as Vasily Lomachenko, who's a champion. They're all putting their gear on. One is the one of the Klitschko brothers is the mayor of Kiev, and he's going out and he's suiting up and he's going fight the front lines. And really, guys who I've boxed with at different tournaments, knowing that they, guy who's world champion, he's a mayor and he could be on the first flight out of there if he wanted to, but he's there and he's fighting on the front lines for his country. So kudos to them.
Yeah, very admirable. I tell you, that they're going to make movies about what's going on right now. A country digging in, not giving up, and refusing to walk away from their native land. I think it's unbelievable show of solidarity around the world, and I don't think this is played out at all the way President Putin expected it to. It's very interesting. So anyway, with that, I will look to entertain the motion for adjournment. Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Dabrowski. All those in favor? All right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the 22nd of